Hello everybody, this is Fernando for the latest Aliens and UFOs Encounters video. I had so much fun doing this the other day that I thought I would do another set of encounters here. Once again from the reddit.com website, they're from the subreddit called Alien Encounters, this time again dealing with three of them. All three of them are separate from one another, different encounters from different users, but they all have some telltale similarities, including some encounters with some tall aliens, and then also a quick throwback to the notion involving sleep paralysis. So very interesting stuff. The first one is called "I Still Can't Believe This Happened." The next one is called Alien Encounter, and then the last one is called Sleep Paralysis or Real? So let's go ahead and let's share all three encounters here. Once again, I'll give my own thoughts and opinions on this. This world of aliens, UFOs is still very mysterious to this day. Everyone is seemingly having encounters of some sort. So I'm going to definitely see if I can do some future videos along these lines as well. So the first one again is called "I Still Can't Believe This Happened," and it comes from a user by the name of Embarrassed Phrase 763. And then here's what it says. So for context, I'm 25 now, and I had this encounter when I was 17. This took place in rural New Jersey during the summer. My best friend lived in a small neighborhood with one entrance point. Across from the entrance was this big empty field. We decided this night we were going to lay a blanket down, smoke some weed, and then look at the stars. We had already been smoking for months at this point and never had any kind of hallucinations. We just got the normal, good old baked status. Around 12 a.m., we decided to walk back over to her house. It wasn't a far walk, but we both felt some weird tension. As we first started to approach her driveway, I remember saying something along the lines of, "Oh, thank God we are back." But as we were more than halfway up the driveway, my best friend stops walking and then goes still. I look at her and see that she is staring straight ahead at something, so I follow her gaze. There was this thing crouched down over some metal thing in her backyard. Now, I'm just a girl, so I can't be for sure, but I think it was the septic tank or something similar. Anyways, it sees us staring, and then immediately, all three of us are just completely shocked. Neither party was expecting this, it seemed like. In a flash, it then stands up from being crouched down and now easily stands at 7 feet, if not taller. It was so white, like a literal sheet of paper, and it was very, very lanky. And so we stared maybe 1 or 2 seconds longer as it ran across her backyard. Each step it took had to be like 6 feet wide. It covered her yard quickly and easily. Her and I turned, grabbed hands, and ran for our lives to the front door, which was locked because we snuck out towards the back. And so we stood there for a couple of minutes, convincing each other it was a deer until we gained the strength to run to her back door. Once inside, we were silent for a few minutes until we both looked at each other and said that was not a deer. My best friend has since sadly passed, and I always wonder, as someone who believes in the afterlife, if she got some clarification as to what that was. And then that's it. That's everything from the user Embarrassed Phrase 763. So let's talk about that here. Creepy encounter, right? Apparently this happened around 8 years ago. The user said she's 25 now, but she was 17 back then. And then her and a friend there in rural New Jersey were just out there in the nighttime just looking at the stars. Now, a big red flag, of course, was them mentioning that they smoked some weed beforehand. She did say that they were smoking for several months before and they never had any hallucinations, so there's always that. So whether that weed was truly affecting her or impacting her with regards to her next encounter, it's still hard to say, but there is that flag that's up there. But in either case, let's go with the basis that no, it did not impact her ability to see whatever it was in front of her. In other words, it was as if she wasn't smoking weed. But what did they see? They saw something involving a crouched figure, very, very white, almost as white as a sheet of paper, and very, very lanky. But it was crouched down. They didn't realize its true height. In fact, when it stood up, now it was 7 feet or taller. And then also the user made one more comment afterward saying that upon recollection, it was dressed in a navy blue tracksuit. And some of the other commenters were also stating that there's more encounters associated with that as well. That apparently aliens or grays are wearing these type of tracksuits too. I haven't heard of that myself per se, but maybe there's out there. But let me know in the comments if you think that's something that's still happening out there as well. But either way, what's with this tall encounter, like this lanky encounter, something that's over 6 feet tall, maybe 7 feet tall plus? In fact, it was so big that every time it took a stride, as it was running away back over to the backyard area, they estimated that it was covering 6 feet every single time it took a stride. So definitely tall, much taller than your average gray. I'm always thinking about those encounters involving the grays being almost the size of small children, but here's something that is much taller than your average person. So what's up with that? Not exactly 100% sure, but at least there's that encounter. Next one has to do with another experience from a user, this one by the name of Repulsive Complex 780. This is a little bit longer, but they titled theirs as Alien Encounter. So here's what they state. So let me start off by saying that I've always been fascinated by stories of people having encounters with ETs, but that is all they were to me, just stories. I didn't really have a solid stance on the matter, as it was hard to wrap my mind around what's factual, since I never experienced anything personally, and I have trust issues with certain things that I hear from people. I pretty much research things on my own and then hope for the best. I do not claim to know much of anything, and I like to keep an open mind to the best of my abilities. So recently, I've been deep diving into my healing journeys. I am dealing with a lot of unknown trauma. I don't remember much of my childhood at all, but I have a few memories as early as 2 years old. I have started meditating a few months back and trying to ground myself and possibly regain some of my lost memories. I wasn't very successful until I was. However, I started seeing symbols and geometric shapes during my first breakthrough, and I felt my body heavily vibrating. The more I practiced, I found that I was able to control the vibrations and sort of play around with it. One day, I was focusing my energy into my third eye and started hearing ringings in my ears that eventually turned into a double ringing, and immediately an image of a gray alien popped up into my view. It was only there for a few seconds before I lost focus. It had big black eyes that looked like polished obsidian, and I just remember being so mesmerized by them. I just assumed that it was a figure of my imagination, and I pushed past it as I was told not to dwell on what I see during my meditation. So fast forward 2 months, I was in my kitchen when I noticed this breathtaking golden eagle outside my window soaring around in the sky. We normally don't see them in my area, so I was just watching it fly around, and then something in the sky flashed really bright. It caught my attention. It was a clear blue sky kind of day, no clouds in sight, and so I quickly glanced at it and saw 2 white oval objects in the sky going by very quick over my house. They were very close together, and they seemed to have this invisible barrier around them that looked like heat waves, forming a perfect layer around them, like a bubble, but not. I'm not sure how to describe it, but since seeing them that day, I have been seeing a lot of other similar things in the sky like that, and other anomalies around the same time in the morning. Not only that, but I have started feeling things around me that weren't there. Like, for example, I would walk into a room and get an uneasy feeling of being watched. The hairs on my body would stand up despite being at a normal temperature. I see flashes of white lights randomly in the closets and the bathroom, and I see shadows moving at the corners of my eyes. I feel like I'm losing my mind at times. Another thing that has been strange is that I'm now having dreams again. I haven't had dreams that I could remember for a few years since my last pregnancy. These dreams are so clear. I've been able to write them down in detail. These dreams that I've had felt like I was living another life completely. I had one where I was fleeing from something in another country. I was with 2 small children who were motionless, and I remember feeling panicked and trying to get them to safety. I remember being separated from the kids, and a man, I want to say was my husband in a dream, and I was led away by another man, a hostile man who then murdered me by hitting my head with some object. These dreams are random, but they felt real. There was one dream that stuck out from the rest, and it honestly gives me chills, because I remember thinking in my dream to check my arms and legs to see if actually it was me and it was. In this dream, I remember being on this property that was sort of on a hill. It looked like a cottage that had these large wooden pillars that were held up by a large balcony. I remember standing in the backyard and just looking at the stars appearing as the sun was setting. I was outside with 14 different strangers who I knew I didn't recognize, but they all felt familiar to me somehow. I suddenly started seeing crafts in the sky, like around 20 of them, and I started jumping like a kid in excitement, trying to get everyone to look at them. They were all in awe, and every time I would look up, they would appear to be closer. The last one appeared really close to the house, and it looked like your typical craft with a dome, and there were some lights around the bottom of it. It was so close that I could feel some type of energy hitting my body. I remember just jumping and waving at it, and they all flew over the house, and then I remember we all went inside to eat. The next thing I knew, I was standing inside by the back door, which was very wide and around 7 feet tall with a large rectangular window above it. I was standing beside some guy who I felt a bond with, maybe a brother type connection or a very good friend. I remember just looking up at this window, and the first thing I noticed was that the lights from the inside were creating a glare, but then I saw a face. It was the same alien face that I saw during my meditative state. The same jet black eyes, which were very, very glossy. And then beside it were two other beings that looked half alien and half human. They had long dark hair from what I could tell, and their eyes were not black, but light in color. They were just hovering or standing there, not sure how tall they were, but they were above the doorway looking through the window, just staring at me. The guy beside me also saw them because he was frozen. He wasn't moving, and I assume he was shocked. Everyone else was oblivious to what was going on as they were all mingling in the kitchen. Despite being shocked myself at first glance, I felt a calming feeling starting from my feet and then creeping its way up my body. When it reached the top of my head, I remember closing my eyes and then waking up. I have a strong sense that it is the same entity that I saw during my meditation. For some reason, I just know. I've tried letting this go, brushing it off, and moving on with my life, and continuing with my healing journey. However, I still feel weird energies around me. I still feel like I'm being watched, and weird things are continuing to happen to me. I have nobody to really reach out to about this without people looking at me like I'm crazy. I'm looking into regression therapy for my missing memories, and I'm trying to document everything from random bruises on my body to my dreams and the anomalies I see, as that is the advice I found on the web. Something is compelling me to reach out online in hopes that I will reach people with similar experiences. I feel very alone right now, sort of trapped in my head. Is it even possible for aliens to connect with me through my dreams? Please feel free to share your experiences with me so I don't feel so crazy. Then that's it. That's everything from the user Repulsive Complex 780. So let's talk about that here. Long set of encounters, right? But still a lot of good detail associated with them. It looks like this user apparently had something start whenever they tried to gain their memories from their childhood. They wanted to regain those lost memories, and apparently they figured out how to do so through a state of meditation. No mention of anything involving like hallucinatory drugs or anything like that. Instead, it was just meditation. But on one of those things, on one of those occasions, that's when all of a sudden she saw it. She stated that she saw something pop up involving the image of a gray alien, a classic gray alien. It was only there for a few seconds, but she saw that it had big black eyes. They were polished obsidian. It was looking at her or in her direction, almost as if she had called it by accident from this strange set of meditation, whatever that was. And so ever since then, apparently, that's when things took a different turn. Not only was she now seeing UFOs out in the skyline, she mentioned about 2 months later seeing a golden eagle somewhere out there and then 2 UFOs around that area, but she started to see now or have these weird dreams as well. These dreams would apparently involve her experiencing things in other parts of the world with people she never had encounters with. But again, she mentioned that she felt strangely familiar with them, as if she had been with them before, as if they were, in one occasion, her children, as if another one was involving her husband, and then in some cases involving very hostile stuff, involving a man about to murder her as well, and then another one involving being surrounded by people, looking up at UFOs, and then having encounters with tall aliens. Again, once again, a trait from the previous encounter too. So what does all this mean? How is this all a coincidence? That she was stating that she never really had these dreams at all until after she had the meditation with that encounter with that alien that was looking at her. So did she accidentally essentially call upon it? Did it answer her? Somewhere along the lines of her being in that meditative state, it opened something. It almost like she dialed a phone number somewhere, and then it in turn caused this alien to answer it. That's creepy stuff. That's the kind of stuff I would never ever get involved with. Like if someone gave me a set of instructions that said, if you follow these meditative states, this is how you'll call upon an alien, like a gray alien or something else along those lines, I would not do it. I wouldn't even read it. I wouldn't even share it here for risk of having that accidentally done. Like, why mess with something like that? Because as she's stating, ever since then, she seems to have still those strange dreams involving that alien, and also those feelings as if she's constantly being watched now, as if there's something following her, and it's all around, not necessarily something that's healing. There she was trying to go on a path, a healing journey of sorts, but it's the complete different opposite effect. Now she's basically in a rut, like she's in a situation where she is in this tense situation. She wants to talk to people, but she can't because, as she's saying, people will look at her like she's crazy. So I'm going to see if there's an update for this user afterwards to see if maybe they were able to do something about this, some form of regression therapy, as she mentioned, or something else to make it go away. But we'll see about that. All right, and now we have the final entry here from a user by the name of Commercial Pizza 513, a shorter one. They titled theirs as "Sleep Paralysis or Real?" question mark. So let's go ahead and let's share this here. This is what they say. Okay, this happened about a month ago, and the few people I've told all laughed at me except for like one guy. So it was around 11 p.m. and I was going to go to sleep. My cats were with me and I fell asleep quite fast until I was awoken in a cold sweat. A loud sound, it sounded like turning on the switch, but 10 times louder, followed by a bright light shined into my window. I was awake but could not move. I was slowly being lifted out of my bed by some invisible force. I tried to look at the window, but it was just out of my view. The one reason why I think it could be real is because my 2 cats scrambled to get away when that sound happened. My initial thoughts weren't fear, but more of what the hell is happening right now. And so I continued to be lifted until I was halfway to the ceiling. Then my mom opened her room door, resulting in the light going and me being dropped back into my bed. She came into my room all confused, saying, "Why are you being so loud at 2 a.m.? In shock, I just said that I was sorry, and then she left. When I came to my senses, I realized my whole bed was soaked from sweat, and I could hear a sound similar to a drone outside, slowly going further away. So I looked at the window, and I think I saw a yellow light, but I'm not so sure. I was so confused." Then that's it. That's everything again. A short entry from the user by the name of Commercial Pizza 513. So let's talk about that here. So obviously they're asking if this is sleep paralysis because they couldn't move. They were sleeping there just one random night with their cats until they were awoken by what they said was a very loud sound. It sounded like turning on of a switch. So I guess imagine that in your head, but they said it was 10 times louder. Then they saw a bright light coming from the window. Then they saw themselves basically being lifted from the bed by some invisible force. And the reason why the user says that this is real is because they distinctly saw their 2 cats scramble to get away from them. So that's the realest thing that they measured by. The fact that these cats that were with the user while they were sleeping were now running away as quickly as possible. Like, in other words, they couldn't just make that up. And so there, what this user was floating in the air when all of a sudden the mother somewhere in the background, her door somewhere opened, and that caused this light, wherever it was coming from, to be shut off, basically dropping the user right there, right on his bed. So did that happen? Did that really happen? Was it sleep paralysis? Was it an alien UFO encounter? The only thing the user mentioned was they looked out the window and somewhere in the distance they saw a yellow light. But what could that yellow light be? Anything as well. Could it be a faraway plane? Could it be something else in the distance, like one of those radio lights from those radio towers, very tall up in the, stretching up into the sky? Who knows? But again, this is a short entry, but I just wanted to include it here. Let me know if you think this was a true case with regards to that. There were some responses from other people asking if the user could provide more details, but the user said no, they were in shock, so they couldn't really drum up much information afterwards. To them, it was more along the lines of fight or flight response. They were just 100% just in shock to give any details. So that's about it. All right, everyone. Thanks again as always. Take care. Bye.